At Atlanta International Airport, 11-year-old Imani Jenkins, dressed in a pink dress with her hair tied up in two buns, was falsely accused of theft and dragged away by security officers just because she was black. Little did they know her father, federal judge William Jenkins, was right there, ready to fight for his daughter's justice. When the truth came out, the racist officers faced public humiliation and career consequences. Will justice finally be served? Can the innocent keep enduring this kind of discrimination forever? Imani's journey from humiliation to victory became a powerful symbol of the fight against racial profiling, shaking the entire airport system to its core. But can this one brave girl use her painful experience to change America for good? Imani Jenkins glanced at herself in the mirror, the pink dress softly swaying as she adjusted the satin ribbon at her waist. Her mother, Diane Jenkins, was fussing over her hair, pulling the two round puffs of tightly coiled curls to make sure they were perfectly even. The shimmering golden beads clipped at the base of each puff caught the morning sunlight, creating a halo effect around her face. "Stand still, baby," Diane murmured, tucking a stray curl behind Imani's ear. "You look perfect." Imani grinned, showing the tiny gap between her front teeth. Her laptop was already tucked safely into her rose gold backpack, and her smartwatch vibrated softly, reminding her that it was almost time to go. "Mom, I've checked everything twice already," she said with a mix of excitement and impatience. "My presentation notes, prototype files, my USB with the neural mapping project, and my ticket. I'm ready." Diane stepped back, hands on her hips, and gave her daughter a once-over with a proud, almost teary gaze. "I just can't believe my baby is about to fly off to MIT at 11 years old." Imani looked at her mother, the mixture of pride and sadness in her eyes, and took her hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. "I'll be okay, Mom. It's just a summer program. I'll be back before you know it." From the doorway, a low, rumbling voice cut through their moment. "If she doesn't break MIT with her genius brain first?" Both turned to see William Jenkins, Imani's father, towering over them with his signature-tailored suit and briefcase in hand. His salt and pepper hair was neatly trimmed, and his presence commanded respect, even in his own home. He walked over and pulled Imani into a tight hug. "You're going to change the world, kiddo," he whispered, his deep, resonant voice filled with conviction. "Remember, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You belong there just as much as anyone else. Maybe even more." Imani smiled up at him, trying to push away the flutter of nerves that had been dancing in her stomach since she woke up. "I know, Dad." He kissed her forehead and whispered, "Always stand tall? Even if the world tries to make you feel small." Diane cleared her throat, fighting back the tears that threatened to spill. "All right, we need to hit the road if we're going to beat traffic." They piled into the family SUV with Imani in the back, nestled between her bags. William kept glancing at her through the rearview mirror as he navigated the early morning traffic of Atlanta. "You ready for this, superstar?" he asked. Imani shot him a bright smile. "Born ready." As they pulled into Atlanta International Airport, William carefully parked in the drop-off zone and got out to help with the bags. Diane straightened Imani's dress one last time before pulling her into a fierce hug. "Ah, I love you so much," Diane whispered, her voice tight with emotion. "You're going to do amazing things." Imani nodded, pressing her face into her mom's shoulder, breathing in her familiar vanilla scent. William rested a firm hand on Imani's shoulder, giving it a gentle squeeze. "Remember, you're more than just your brain. You're kind, courageous, and worthy of every good thing that comes your way. If you need anything, call me. I don't care what time it is." "I will, Dad," Imani promised. A sudden gust of wind swept past, making the beads in her hair clink together softly. She turned to wave as her parents reluctantly walked back to the car, both looking back every few steps. Once they were out of sight, Imani adjusted the strap of her backpack and marched through the sliding glass doors of the terminal. Her heart was thudding with excitement as she took in the bustling airport. A maze of hurried travelers, towering luggage carts, and the low hum of flight announcements echoing through the cavernous space. Imani approached the self-check-in kiosk, her small fingers dancing over the touchscreen as she printed her boarding pass. An elderly couple beside her exchanged a soft smile as they noticed her pink dress and confident stance. "Excuse me, young lady," the man said warmly. "Are you traveling alone?" Imani nodded, smiling brightly. "I'm going to MIT for the summer engineering program." The woman gasped softly. "That's incredible. You must be a real genius." Imani gave a shy shrug. "I just like building things. I'm working on a neural interface for prosthetics." The couple exchanged another amazed look. The man gave her a thumbs up. "You're going to change the world, little lady." Feeling her confidence surge, Imani moved through the security checkpoint, where a friendly TSA agent scanned her ticket and ID. She made it through without any issues, only pausing to slip her shoes back on and grab her backpack. As she navigated toward her gate, her eyes caught a glimpse of something familiar. A boy about her age wearing an MIT hoodie, standing by the coffee kiosk. Curiosity got the better of her, and she wandered over. "Hey," she greeted. "Are you going to the MIT program too?" The boy looked up, his dark eyes widening before he smiled. "Yeah, I'm Alex Chan. Are you in the robotics or AI group?" "AI," Imani replied, her face lighting up. "I'm Imani Jenkins. I'm working on prosthetics that respond to brain signals." Alex looked genuinely impressed. "That's insane. I'm in the robotics group. Last year, Professor Lin had us build mini drone swarms. It was wild." Imani's eyes widened. "You've been there before?" "Yeah, this is my second time," Alex replied, leaning against the counter. "But I've never met anyone working on neurotech at your age. That's incredible." They fell into a comfortable conversation about their respective projects and challenges they'd faced. Imani found herself forgetting the nerves, immersed in Alex's tales of past workshops and late-night coding sessions. She didn't even notice the woman standing a few feet away, arms crossed, glaring at her with a look of disdain. Karen Whitlock, immaculately dressed in a tailored cream suit and a hat with a wide brim, watched the interaction with narrowed eyes. She huffed loudly as Imani laughed at one of Alex's jokes, visibly bristling at the sight of the little black girl in a fancy pink dress chatting so confidently in the VIP area. When Imani excused herself to use the restroom, Karen took the opportunity to step closer to Alex, a haughty smile on her face. "Is that little girl bothering you?" Karen asked with an air of false concern. "She doesn't look like she belongs here." Alex frowned. "What?" "No, she's just a friend. We're both going to MIT." Karen's lip curled in disbelief. "MIT? That child? Don't be gullible. She probably snuck in here. Someone like her can't afford to be in first class." Alex bristled at the insinuation. "She's just a kid. I don't think—" Karen cut him off, her tone icy. "You're too naive. I've seen these types before, sneaky, trying to take advantage. I'll alert security. This place needs to be safe for respectable people." As she stalked off toward the nearest security officer, Alex felt a pang of discomfort but didn't know what to do. He glanced back toward the restroom, hoping Imani would return soon. When Imani stepped out of the restroom, she immediately sensed something was wrong. Officer Blakely, a tall, muscular man with a grim expression, and Officer Matthews, a stern-faced woman, were standing at the gate speaking to Karen, who pointed directly at Imani. "There she is!" Karen hissed, practically spitting the words. "That's the one who stole my laptop and was lurking around here suspiciously." Imani froze, her mind spinning. Stole? What was she talking about? The officers approached, their presence intimidating despite their polite tone. "Excuse me, miss," Officer Blakely said, his voice calm but firm. "We need to ask you a few questions." Imani's mouth went dry. "Is something wrong?" "A passenger has reported a theft, and you match the description," Officer Matthews added, eyeing her pink dress with suspicion. Karen stepped closer, her face twisted with self-righteous triumph. I saw her hiding something in that ridiculous pink backpack. Who does she think she's fooling? Imani felt the sting of tears but forced them back. I didn't steal anything. This is my laptop and my bag. Please, you can check. Officer Blakely gestured toward the nearby waiting area. Let's move to a more private space, okay? As they led her away, Imani caught sight of Alex watching with confusion and worry. She gave him a small, shaky smile, hoping he wouldn't think she was guilty. But deep inside, terror gripped her heart. What had she done to deserve this? Why did they assume she was a thief? Her father had warned her about moments like these, but knowing it and living it were two entirely different things. As they reached the small security room, Imani couldn't help but wonder if this was how her bright future would end. In humiliation, accused of something she didn't do, just because of how she looked and what she wore. As Imani was led into the small, windowless security office, her heart pounded so loudly it drowned out everything else. The room smelled like old coffee and disinfectant, and the fluorescent lights above flickered annoyingly. Officer Blakely gestured for her to sit on a cold metal chair in the middle of the room, while Officer Matthews closed the door behind them, blocking out the sounds of the bustling airport. Place your backpack on the table, Blakely instructed, his voice devoid of emotion. Imani hesitated, holding her precious backpack a little tighter. Please, sir, this is just my stuff. I didn't steal anything. Blakely ignored her and pointed more insistently at the table. Trembling, she set the bag down and unzipped it. The officers moved in like hawks, searching through her belongings with rough, careless hands. Imani flinched as they rifled through her neatly packed clothes, tossing items aside without a care. Her laptop was the first to be examined. Officer Matthews flipped it open and started it up, glaring suspiciously at the customized login screen. A vibrant, animated logo Imani had coded herself that read Future Innovator, with rainbow-hued gears turning behind it. What's the password? Matthews snapped. Imani bit her lip, hesitating. It's private. Blakely leaned in closer, towering over her. Kid, you're in enough trouble already. Give us the password. Tears prickled at her eyes. EM4NI11, she whispered. Matthews typed it in and the laptop unlocked, revealing folders filled with coding projects, AI diagrams, and detailed files labeled Neural Mapping Project and Prosthetic Adaptation. She scrolled through the files with a puzzled expression. This looks complicated. Are these yours? Matthews asked, a hint of doubt seeping into her tone. Yes, ma'am, Imani replied softly, wiping at her eyes. I'm working on neuro-responsive prosthetics for people who've lost limbs so they can feel again. Blakely scoffed. Don't lie, you're telling me you made this stuff? You expect us to believe an 11-year-old made advanced tech like this? You must have stolen it from someone else. Imani's cheeks burned with both fear and anger. I didn't steal anything, she cried out, her voice cracking. It's mine. I worked on it for years. Blakely ignored her protest, turning to Matthews. Check for any reports of stolen laptops in the system. Let's see if this matches any descriptions. Matthews nodded and pulled out her tablet, tapping furiously on the screen. Meanwhile, Blakely kept his eyes trained on Imani, his expression cold and unforgiving. In that tense silence, the door suddenly burst open, and Karen strode in uninvited, followed by a younger airport employee desperately trying to stop her. I have every right to be here, Karen snapped at the employee before pointing dramatically at Imani. That's her. That's the girl who was sneaking around the VIP lounge. I saw her with my own eyes. Ma'am, you can't be in here, the employee insisted, trying to usher her out. Blakely raised a hand to silence him. It's fine. Let her speak. Karen crossed her arms, glaring at Imani with disdain. She was lurking near my luggage and then acted all innocent. When I checked my bag, my laptop was missing. I just know she took it. These types are all the same. Sneaky, dishonest, always looking for a chance to steal. Imani felt like the air was being squeezed out of her lungs. I didn't touch your bag. I was just talking to Alex by the coffee kiosk. I've never even seen your laptop. Karen sneered. Like I'd believe a word out of your mouth. Officer Matthews looked up from her tablet. There's no report of a stolen laptop filed yet, she said, sounding uncertain. Maybe she didn't have time to report it. Karen huffed, tossing her manicured hands in the air. Are you just going to let her go because she's a kid? She's clearly one of those crafty little criminals. Blakely looked conflicted, but eventually nodded. We'll keep her here until we verify everything. Moni's heart sank deeper than it ever had before. Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone. Can I at least call my dad? Please, I just need to talk to him, she whispered. Blakely shot her a suspicious glance. Why? So you can make up some story? Forget it. We're handling this. I have rights, Imani stammered. I know I do. My dad, he's a federal judge. Karen snorted, throwing her head back in mocking laughter. Oh, honey, that's rich. You're telling me your daddy is a federal judge? Please, do you think we're that gullible? Stop lying. It's pathetic. The viciousness in her tone cut Imani to the bone, but she bit down on her lip, determined not to cry. She couldn't give Karen that satisfaction. Suddenly, the younger airport employee spoke up, his voice shaking. Sir, I think it might be a mistake. I saw her sitting quietly with another kid. Both of them had MIT stuff. I don't think she... Blakely cut him off with a glare. We're not looking for your opinion, kid. Step out. The employee hesitated, his eyes lingering on Imani sympathetically before he left. Karen looked pleased with herself, clearly reveling in her perceived victory. You see? Karen sneered. Even if the laptop isn't stolen, there's something off about this girl. She doesn't belong here. Who lets a little black girl wander around alone in first class anyway? The venom in her words made Imani's hands curl into fists. She forced herself to stay calm, remembering her dad's words. Stand tall, even when they try to make you feel small. Suddenly, the door swung open again. This time it wasn't some intruding busybody, but a presence that commanded the room. William Jenkins strode in, his tailored suit impeccable, eyes blazing with righteous fury. The aura around him was unbreakable. Every inch of him screamed authority and power. Behind him was a squad of federal officers, one of whom approached Blakely and whispered something in his ear that made the officer pale visibly. Karen's triumphant smile faltered as William fixed his gaze on her. Would someone care to explain why my daughter is being held without evidence? William's tone was so controlled it was almost terrifying. And why you've refused her basic rights to a phone call or parental notification? Blakely cleared his throat, struggling to maintain his composure. Sir, Your Honor, we received a report of a theft and the suspect matched a vague description that could fit dozens of children in this airport, William interrupted, his voice colder than ice. And did you bother to corroborate that report before detaining my 11-year-old daughter? Karen piped up, her bravado crumbling but still desperate to assert herself. She was acting suspiciously. I just knew something was wrong with her. William turned his gaze on her, eyes piercing through her defenses. And what made you so certain of that, ma'am? Her dress? Her hair? Or was it just the color of her skin? Karen stuttered, trying to find a response. I just thought... William cut her off. Your assumptions, based purely on racial bias, have led to the wrongful detainment of my child. Not only will I be pursuing legal action against you for false accusation and defamation, but I will also ensure that this airport is investigated for procedural misconduct. Blakely's face was ashen. Sir, please, we were just following protocol. Your protocol, Officer Blakely, William replied sharply, is built on prejudice and profiling. This isn't just a mistake. This is institutional racism, and I will not stand for it. At that moment, the younger airport employee timidly re-entered the room, holding a laptop. Sir, I just checked Lost and Found. This is the laptop that was reported missing. It was left in the VIP lounge by mistake. It doesn't belong to the young lady. Karen's face drained of color. That's impossible. I know what I saw. Seems your vision isn't as clear as your prejudice, William stated flatly. Officer Matthews, now visibly embarrassed and regretful, handed Imani back her backpack. I'm truly sorry, miss. We made a mistake. Imani just nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. William wrapped a protective arm around her and guided her out of the room, not sparing Karen another glance. As they passed through the terminal, whispers erupted among the crowd that had gathered outside the security office. Some people took videos, capturing the moment Karen was escorted out in disgrace. When they reached a quieter area, William knelt down and took Imani's hands in his. You okay, sweetheart? Imani managed a small nod, but her voice quivered. They thought I was a thief, because I looked different. William hugged her tightly. I know, and they were wrong. You didn't deserve that. I'm proud of you for staying strong. Suddenly, Alex appeared, breathless and wide-eyed. Imani, are you okay? I told the airline staff to call your dad when I saw what happened. I didn't know what else to do. Imani smiled weakly. Thank you for trying to help. William glanced at the boy and nodded approvingly. That was good thinking. I appreciate it. As they walked toward the gate, the humiliation still simmering in her heart, Imani knew one thing. She wouldn't let this break her. She would move forward stronger than before and make sure no one else would have to go through what she did. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning of a fight for justice. Not just for her, but for everyone like her. Imani and her father were led to a private lounge after the ordeal, a sleek, luxurious room reserved for high-profile travelers and VIPs. The airline staff, now fully aware of the gravity of their mistake, bent over backward to accommodate them. An apologetic manager named Mr. Reynolds, with a nervous smile and trembling hands, approached them cautiously. Your Honor, he began, his voice quivering under William's cold, unwavering stare. We deeply regret the incident earlier. I assure you this does not reflect our usual standards of customer service. William glanced at Imani, who was still clutching his hand tightly, her usually bright eyes now shadowed by a lingering fear. He looked back at the manager with a cold, controlled fury that could freeze a volcano. Mr. Reynolds, William spoke, each word a blade cutting through the air. You are going to personally ensure that my daughter boards her flight without further harassment or delay. Furthermore, I expect a formal public apology from both your staff and the security team, and I do not want that woman. He gestured in the direction where Karen had been dragged off, to be anywhere near my daughter during boarding. Reynolds swallowed, nodding furiously. Yes, sir. We will make it right, I promise. Complimentary first-class upgrades for both flights, and a direct report to the airline's headquarters. I will personally make sure of it. Imani tugged at her father's sleeve, her voice small but steady. Dad, can I still go? I don't want them to think they've scared me away. William looked down, pride momentarily softening his fierce gaze. Of course you can go, sweetheart. No one is taking your dreams from you. A flicker of determination reignited in Imani's eyes. Then I want to go back to the gate. I don't want to hide in here. Reynolds hesitated. Sir, are you sure? There's been some commotion outside. People recorded the whole incident. It's all over social media. We can arrange for private boarding? No, Imani interrupted, her chin lifting slightly. I'm not sneaking around like I did something wrong. Let them see me walk to that gate like I belong there. Because I do. William couldn't help but feel an overwhelming surge of pride. He gave her hand a gentle squeeze. Lead the way then, superstar. As they stepped out of the VIP lounge, Imani noticed the way the terminal seemed to ripple with whispers and murmurs. Passengers glanced their way, some with apologetic expressions, others with uncomfortable guilt. A group of young teens gave her a thumbs up as she passed, and one woman even called out, "You're amazing, sweetie." Alex caught up with them just as they reached the gate. "Hey," he panted. I I've been looking for you. Everyone's talking about what happened. It's all over Twitter and Instagram." Imani blinked. "Already?" He nodded. "It's blowing up. There's even a hashtag pink dress justice." William gave a slight smile at that. Social media moves faster than justice sometimes. As they reached the gate, a large group of passengers was gathered around, murmuring and pointing. One of the airline representatives, a tall, blonde woman named Linda Crawford, stepped forward, trying to compose herself, despite the clear nervousness in her eyes. "Your Honor," she greeted respectfully, "we're ready to begin boarding. Your daughter will have priority boarding and an escort to ensure no further issues." Imani caught sight of Officer Matthews standing near the security checkpoint, looking downcast and visibly upset. Next to her was Officer Blakely, who looked even more stoic and stubborn than before, refusing to meet William's gaze. "I think we need to talk," William stated firmly. "Right here, right now." Linda paled. "Sir, perhaps a more private—" "No," William said resolutely. "Right here, where everyone can see. This conversation shouldn't be hidden." The entire gate area fell into silence, and even some passengers pulled out their phones, recording the encounter. William approached Blakely and Matthews, his presence suffocatingly authoritative. "Officer Blakely," William began, his voice steady but fierce. "Would you care to explain to me why you detained an 11-year-old girl, refused her a phone call, and ignored her constitutional rights based on nothing more than the vague and racially charged accusations of a single biased woman?" Blakely stiffened, his jaw clenching. "Sir, we were following standard procedures." "Wrong answer," William interrupted. "Your procedure is flawed if it allows profiling to masquerade as security. Did you stop any other children in pink dresses that day? Or just my daughter because she happened to be black?" Blakely hesitated, clearly struggling to form a response. Officer Matthews looked stricken, guilt etched into her features. I'm sorry," Matthews whispered, her eyes glistening with regret. "I didn't question it. I just followed his lead. I didn't think it through." "That's the problem," William shot back. "You didn't think. You let your own biases and those of others dictate your actions without any critical judgment. You treated my daughter like a criminal because of how she looked, without evidence or reason." The gathered crowd murmured, some whispering angrily about the injustice. Blakely swallowed hard, but his pride wouldn't let him admit his fault. "We had to investigate the claim. We can't ignore reports of theft." "No one is saying you should," William replied coldly. "But your investigation started and ended with my daughter simply because Karen Whitlock pointed at her and made an accusation. You did not investigate her claims objectively. You acted as judge and jury based on appearance alone." A woman in the crowd shouted, "That's messed up!" Another man chimed in, "Justice for the pink dress!" Linda, the gate agent, looked like she wanted to disappear. Imani remained silent, standing next to her father, absorbing every word. She had never seen him so composed, so commanding, and yet so devastatingly precise in his rebuke. As the tension thickened, another airline official approached, a dignified older man with a silver beard and sharp, analytical eyes. He introduced himself as James Patterson, the regional director of operations. "Your Honor," Patterson greeted, dipping his head respectfully. "I just arrived after receiving an emergency call from corporate. I deeply apologize for the treatment your daughter has endured, and I assure you we will conduct a full investigation into the actions of these officers and our staff." "I expect nothing less," William replied curtly. But an apology alone is insufficient. I want reform, training, accountability. No more profiling, no more unjust attainments based on vague descriptions that rely on skin color. Patterson looked genuinely regretful. We will make this right. Our airline has always prided itself on diversity and inclusion, and today we failed that principle. You have my word that we will rectify this. William nodded, the fire in his eyes still burning. Good, because I will not let this slide, and I expect full cooperation when the civil rights inquiry begins. The crowd erupted into spontaneous applause. Some even cheered for Amani, chanting, "Pink dress!" Pink dress. She blushed deeply, unsure whether to smile or cry, but Alex grinned and gave her a gentle nudge. You're a hero now, he whispered. Amani gave him a small smile. I didn't do anything. Exactly, he replied. And that's why it's wrong. As the final boarding call echoed through the terminal, Linda motioned for Amani and William to board first, with Alex following closely. Just as they were about to step through the gate, a disheveled Karen appeared again, shouting hysterically. This is ridiculous, she shrieked. Why is she still here? You're letting a thief board the plane. I will not stand for this. Security quickly intervened, but William turned back, fixing Karen with a glare so icy it could have frozen fire. You, he said sharply, his voice cutting through her ranting. You are exactly the kind of person who poisons our society, hateful, prejudiced, and unwilling to admit your mistakes. Your sense of superiority does not justify the harm you've caused today. My daughter will go on to change the world, while you will be remembered as nothing more than a bitter footnote in her story. Karen paled, stumbling backward as the gravity of his words hit her like a sledgehammer. As security escorted her away, the crowd clapped again, louder than before. William placed a gentle hand on Amani's shoulder. Let's go make history, kiddo. Once they were settled in their luxurious first-class seats, William finally allowed himself to relax, taking a deep breath. He looked at Amani, his fierce expression softening. Are you all right? He asked. Amani nodded slowly, still processing everything that had happened. I think so. I didn't know people could hate like that, or think I didn't belong just because of how I look. William's expression was pained. I wish I could say it doesn't happen, but you faced it head on. You didn't let it crush you. I didn't want to give her the satisfaction, Imani admitted, looking out the window, but it still hurts. He leaned over and pressed a kiss to her forehead. The world isn't always fair, but you don't let it break you. You fight back, you shine brighter, and you prove today that you're stronger than their hate. As the plane taxied down the runway, Imani felt a renewed sense of purpose blooming inside her chest. She wasn't just going to MIT to study technology, she was going to learn how to build tools to fight prejudice, to make the world better not just for herself, but for everyone who had been made to feel small or unwanted. The engines roared to life, and as the plane ascended, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She glanced over at her father, who gave her an encouraging nod, and then at Alex, who flashed a reassuring smile. The world had tried to knock her down, but Amani Jenkins wasn't going to let it. She was flying towards her future, stronger than ever. The plane touched down in Boston, the wheels hitting the tarmac with a soft thud, and Imani felt a rush of excitement mingled with exhaustion. The past few hours had been a whirlwind of emotions, but now that she was finally here, the anticipation of MIT's summer program reignited her determination. As they disembarked, William kept a protective arm around Imani's shoulders. A few passengers from the flight stopped to congratulate her on how bravely she had handled the situation earlier. One woman, a grandmotherly figure with kind eyes, pressed a chocolate bar into Imani's hand and whispered, You're going to do great things, sweetheart. Don't let anyone dim your light. When they reached the baggage claim, William's phone buzzed, and he glanced at the screen, his expression darkening. Imani noticed and tugged at his sleeve. What's wrong, Dad? He hesitated, then turned the phone toward her. It was a news notification, an article from a major outlet. Federal judge's daughter targeted in racial profiling incident. Airport security under investigation. Imani's stomach twisted. It's everywhere, isn't it? William gave a small nod. Social media's flooded with the video. News networks picked it up right away. They're talking about civil rights violations, systemic racism, and the lack of accountability in airport security practices. Just then, Alex jogged over with his luggage, looking a little sheepish. Hey, thought I lost you guys. You good? Imani gave him a faint smile. Better now that we're here. William glanced at Alex and smiled appreciatively. Thanks for sticking with her earlier. You did the right thing. Alex shrugged, grinning. That's what friends are for. Before they could leave the airport, an official-looking man in a suit approached, holding up a badge. Judge Jenkins? He greeted, his tone respectful. I'm Special Agent Cole with the Department of Justice. I was sent to escort you to your hotel and discuss some urgent matters regarding the incident earlier. William's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Lead the way. The hotel was nothing short of luxurious. Polished marble floors, high arched ceilings, and large windows offering panoramic views of the Boston skyline. After checking in, they were led to a private conference room where several high-ranking officials were already waiting. Among them was Director Samuel Hughes, the head of the Transportation Security Administration, looking particularly grim. William exchanged introductions, and Director Hughes gestured for them to sit. Your Honor, he began, clearing his throat, I want to start by expressing my deepest apologies for the unacceptable treatment your daughter faced. The video has gone viral, and we've been under intense public scrutiny all day. William raised an eyebrow. As you should be. What happened to my daughter isn't an isolated incident. It's symptomatic of a larger systemic problem with racial profiling and discriminatory practices. Hughes nodded, clearly prepared for the confrontation. We're conducting a full internal review of the officers involved and the procedural failures at Atlanta International. Officer Blakely and Officer Matthews have been placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. That's not enough, William countered, his tone icy. You can't just throw a few scapegoats under the bus and claim the problem's fixed. You need sweeping reform and accountability. Hughes nodded again, but this time with a more thoughtful expression. We're proposing mandatory training on racial bias and civil rights for all TSA personnel nationwide. We'll also establish a task force to examine existing practices and recommend comprehensive changes. Imani couldn't help but feel skeptical, but before she could speak, William pressed on. And what about accountability? Training alone isn't enough if officers aren't held responsible for their actions. Director Hughes sighed. That's why we're planning to implement stricter disciplinary policies. Any confirmed case of racial profiling will result in immediate suspension and possible termination. William leaned back, clearly still dissatisfied. I'll be drafting a report with my own recommendations, and I expect the DOJ to take this seriously. Hughes glanced at Imani, his gaze softening. Miss Jenkins, you've inspired a lot of people by standing your ground. I just want you to know that your bravery has made a real difference. You've sparked a national conversation that needed to happen. Imani looked down at her lap, unsure how to respond. Was she really brave? Or just lucky to have a father who could fight for her? After the meeting, as they walked back to their suite, William's phone rang again. He glanced at the screen and smiled. It's your mother. Imani eagerly took the phone. Mom. Diane's warm, familiar voice poured through the speaker. Baby girl, how are you holding up? I'm okay, Imani replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Just still processing. Diane sighed. You're stronger than you know. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I didn't want them to see me cry, Imani admitted softly. That's because you're a fighter, Diane said gently. Your father and I raised you to never back down when you're right. Remember that. William took the phone back and reassured Diane that they were safe and settled in, promising to call her again later. As he hung up, he gave Imani a warm, proud smile. You amaze me, you know that? he said softly. Imani leaned into his side, feeling a bit of the weight lift from her shoulders. I didn't do anything special. I just didn't want them to win. That's enough, William whispered, kissing her temple. Sometimes just standing your ground is enough. The next day, Imani arrived at MIT's campus, greeted by a flurry of excited students and staff. News of her ordeal had already spread, and many of the students treated her like a hero. It was overwhelming, but Alex stuck by her side, keeping her calm and helping her navigate the attention. At the opening ceremony, Professor Alan Harper, the program director, addressed the crowd. When he spotted Imani and Alex, he beckoned them to the front. Nervously, Imani approached the podium, unsure of what to expect. Professor Harper adjusted the microphone and spoke in a booming, authoritative voice. Before we begin, I want to recognize one of our newest students who has shown not only remarkable talent, but also immense courage. Imani Jenkins, would you say a few words? Imani froze, caught off guard by the unexpected request. Alex gave her a gentle nudge. Go on, you've got this. Taking a deep breath, she approached the microphone, eyes scanning the sea of students and faculty. Hi, she started, her voice trembling slightly. I didn't expect to be talking today, but I guess I just want to say that I'm grateful to be here. Getting to MIT's summer program was always a dream. I never thought I'd face something like what happened yesterday. But my dad always told me that when people try to make you feel small, you stand taller. You prove them wrong. That's why I'm here. The crowd erupted into applause, and Imani felt the knot of anxiety in her chest loosen. Harper smiled proudly, gesturing for her to continue. I know that I'm just one person, and that what happened to me has happened to so many others who don't have a platform or a voice. But I want to use mine to make things better, not just for me, but for everyone. I want to build technology that helps people, that bridges gaps, and that fights injustice. Because that's what innovation should be, making the world better for everyone, not just a few. The applause this time was even louder, and Harper gave her a reassuring pat on the shoulder as she stepped back. Alex grinned as she returned to her seat. That was awesome, he whispered. Imani smiled, feeling more confident than she had in days. That evening, as they returned to the hotel, William received a call from an unexpected source, Senator Rachel Monroe, a powerful advocate for civil rights reform. Judge Jenkins, Senator Monroe greeted warmly. I wanted to personally commend your daughter for her bravery. What happened was unacceptable, and it has sparked outrage nationwide. I appreciate that, Senator, William replied. But we need more than outrage. We need systemic change. That's why I'm calling, she said. I'm introducing legislation to increase oversight on TSA practices, including mandatory bias training and accountability measures. I'd like your help in drafting the bill, and your daughter's insight as well. William glanced at Imani, who was listening intently. I think she'd be honored. Imani's eyes widened. Me? Help write a law? Your story has power, Imani, Monroe said gently. People need to hear it, from you. Your voice can make a difference. Imani hesitated, then nodded firmly. Okay, I'll do it. As the call ended, William looked at her, his eyes glistening with pride. You're making history, kiddo. That night, as Imani lay in bed, her mind raced with possibilities. Everything that had happened felt surreal, but the pain was slowly transforming into determination. She had a voice, and now she had a platform. Maybe she couldn't change the world overnight, but she could start by making sure no one else had to go through what she did. She took out her laptop and opened a new document, titling it Project Equal Access, an Algorithm to Combat Profiling. She would combine her knowledge of neural mapping with data analysis to develop a tool that could detect patterns of bias in security protocols. This was just the beginning. She was determined to make sure her journey wasn't just about surviving injustice, but defeating it, one line of code at a time. The next morning, Imani woke up to a flurry of notifications on her phone. The hashtags number sign, pink dress justice, and number sign stand with Imani were trending worldwide. News anchors, civil rights activists, and even celebrities were talking about her story. Videos from the airport incident had amassed millions of views, and comments poured in from people all over the globe, some offering support, others sharing their own experiences with racial profiling. Sitting up in bed, Imani took a deep breath, feeling overwhelmed. William walked in, carrying a tray with breakfast, her favorite waffles topped with strawberries and whipped cream. "Morning, superstar," he said with a proud smile. She couldn't help but grin. "Morning, Dad." He set the tray on the bed and sat beside her, glancing at her phone. "You've become quite the movement leader overnight." Imani's smile faded as she stared at one particularly hateful comment. "Not everyone's happy about it," she murmured. "Some people think I'm making a big deal out of nothing, that I'm looking for attention." William placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Imani, no matter how loud the voices of hate are, they will never drown out the truth. You didn't choose to be in that position, but you chose to fight back, and that's why they're scared. Because you didn't stay silent." Imani nodded, but before she could reply, William's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and answered, his tone professional. "Judge Jenkins speaking." Imani watched as his expression shifted from composed to intrigued. "Yes, I understand. That would be appreciated." "Of course, thank you." As he hung up, he looked at Imani with a strange glint in his eyes. "That was the airport director from Atlanta. They've called an emergency press conference. The entire security team involved in your detainment has been suspended, and they're formally apologizing to you in front of the media." Imani's eyes widened. "An apology? In public?" William nodded. "And they want you to attend, if you're comfortable with it." She hesitated, her mind spinning. Part of her wanted to confront them, to show them that she wasn't afraid, but another part still felt the sting of their accusations, the humiliation of being treated like a criminal. "You don't have to do this," William said gently. "You've already made your point. No one would blame you for choosing to move on." Imani took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. "I want to go. I want to look them in the eye when they admit they were wrong." William squeezed her shoulder, pride evident in his gaze. "Then we'll make sure they know the world is watching." The press conference was held at the same airport where the incident occurred, but this time it was a different kind of crowd. Reporters with cameras and microphones formed a semicircle around a hastily assembled stage. The airport director, James Patterson, stood at the podium looking tense and uncomfortable. Imani stood just behind him with William by her side. As they waited for the event to start, she spotted Karen at the edge of the crowd, her face pale and eyes downcast. Her lawyer stood beside her, whispering furiously. A flash of satisfaction flickered through Imani. Karen no longer looked confident or smug, just small and desperate. When the cameras began rolling, Patterson cleared his throat. "Good afternoon, everyone. I am here on behalf of Atlanta International Airport and the Transportation Security Administration to address the incident that took place involving Miss Imani Jenkins. After a thorough review of the circumstances, we have determined that the actions taken against Miss Jenkins were both inappropriate and unjust. The officers involved have been suspended pending a full investigation, and we are implementing new training protocols to prevent racial profiling." A murmur rippled through the crowd as Patterson continued. "We deeply regret the harm caused to Miss Jenkins and her family. We failed to uphold the standards of fairness and respect that our passengers deserve, and for that we sincerely apologize. Miss Jenkins, we owe you not only an apology, but a commitment to do better." He stepped back, motioning for Imani to come forward. Heart pounding, Imani approached the microphone. Taking a deep breath, she steadied her nerves and spoke with a calm, unwavering voice. "Yesterday, I was treated like a criminal because of how I look. No one asked me about my achievements, my dreams, or my worth, They just saw my skin color and made assumptions. It hurt. But I won't let that define me. I'm more than their prejudice. I am talented, hardworking, and I deserve to be treated with respect. The cameras clicked incessantly, capturing every word. Amani glanced briefly at Karen, whose face had turned an unhealthy shade of white. Then she looked back at the reporters. "Ms. Whitlock," he said calmly, "your actions went beyond simple concern. You made an assumption based solely on race. You didn't just suspect, you accused, judged, and condemned without evidence. Your behavior perpetuated harmful stereotypes that have real consequences for people of color every day." Karen's lawyer tried to pull her back, but she was too far gone, her face twisted with denial. "No, I was just trying to do the right thing. She looked suspicious. I had every right to—" "You had no right to accuse an innocent child without cause," William cut in, his tone cold and merciless. "And now you're facing the consequences of your actions. Your prejudice led to harm, and the public won't excuse that." Karen's mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Her lawyer finally managed to pull her back, whispering furiously into her ear. Turning to face the cameras once more, William spoke with quiet authority. "This incident is not just about one person's bias. It's about how we, as a society, treat each other based on preconceived notions and racial stereotypes. This is why reform is necessary, not just at this airport but across the nation. We must hold ourselves to a higher standard." When the press conference ended, Amani felt an overwhelming sense of relief. Reporters bombarded them with questions, but William guided her away, refusing to subject her to further stress. As they walked to the car, Amani's phone buzzed with messages of support from friends, classmates, and even some professors at MIT who had seen the news. She allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. "Dad," she whispered, squeezing his hand. "We did it." He looked down at her, his eyes soft with pride. "No, sweetheart. You did it. You stood up not just for yourself, but for everyone who's ever been unfairly judged. That's strength." Amani looked back at the airport one last time, the place where her humiliation had turned into a revolution. She knew that the fight wasn't over, that changing minds and systems would take time, but today she had made her voice heard. As they drove away, she glanced at her phone and saw a message from Alex. "Proud of you. You're amazing. Can't wait to build cool stuff together at MIT. Pink dress justice." With a renewed sense of purpose, Amani leaned back, letting the warm sunlight stream through the car window. She was no longer just the girl in the pink dress. They had tried to make her a victim, but she had turned herself into a victor. A victor who would never stop fighting for justice no matter how many battles lay ahead. Lessons learned and reflections on humanity. The story of Amani Jenkins is not just a tale of triumph over adversity. It is a profound reflection on the enduring challenges of racial prejudice and the transformative power of resilience, determination, and solidarity. At its core, this narrative sheds light on a reality that countless individuals of color face daily, being judged not for their character or achievements, but solely for their appearance. Amani's journey reveals the harsh, unapologetic truth of systemic discrimination, but it also celebrates the beauty of human spirit, community support, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. One of the most critical lessons from this story is the importance of self-worth and unwavering confidence in the face of discrimination. Imani's ordeal at the airport is a painful but accurate portrayal of how young Black individuals are often seen as suspicious, unworthy, or less deserving, purely because of their skin color. The way Amani refuses to be broken by the humiliation demonstrates a fundamental life value, knowing one's own worth despite external judgment. She does not let the prejudice of others dictate her sense of identity, proving that inner strength and dignity are invaluable when navigating a world that too often seeks to undermine them. This story also highlights the importance of raising strong, resilient individuals who can stand firm against systemic oppression. Amani's father, Judge William Jenkins, plays a pivotal role in shaping her confidence and sense of justice. His guidance that one must stand taller when people try to make you feel small is a powerful mantra that resonates throughout the story. His unwavering support is a reminder that while individual resilience is essential, the presence of mentors, role models, and allies amplifies one's ability to fight back against injustice. Furthermore, the narrative challenges society to confront its biases and question the deep-rooted systems that perpetuate discrimination. Amani's experience serves as a painful wake-up call to those who remain complacent in the face of racial injustice. Karen Whitlock's reaction, a misguided sense of superiority rooted in race, highlights the danger of unchecked prejudice, while the complacency of the security officers exposes how systemic bias often goes unchallenged. When individuals like Karen misuse their privilege to wield power unjustly, it causes immeasurable harm to those who are simply living their lives. This story compels readers to reflect on their own biases, no matter how subtle or ingrained they may be. One of the most beautiful aspects of this story is how Imani transforms her pain into purpose. Rather than succumbing to anger or bitterness, she channels her energy into creating meaningful change, developing technology to detect and prevent profiling. This proactive approach showcases the human capacity to turn trauma into innovation, using personal suffering as a catalyst for systemic reform. Imani's choice to face her challenges head-on and work toward making the world a better place exemplifies the resilience that defines human nature at its best. The concept of solidarity also emerges as a key theme throughout the story. Alex, Imani's friend and ally, refuses to board the plane without knowing she is safe, demonstrating that true friendship means standing up for what is right, even when it is inconvenient or risky. His willingness to use his privilege to amplify Imani's voice underscores the importance of allyship in combating discrimination. In a world where bystanders often remain silent, Alex's decision to support Imani is a powerful reminder that change requires collective action. Moreover, the story challenges the notion of authority and accountability within institutions. The airport security officers, blinded by their preconceived notions, act as judge and jury without questioning the credibility of Karen's baseless accusations. Their refusal to critically evaluate the situation reveals how authority figures can become complicit in perpetuating discrimination when they fail to question their own biases. It serves as a stark warning that power without accountability leads to injustice. The story also celebrates the courage to stand up and speak out. Imani's decision to address the press, despite her fear and vulnerability, is a defining moment of bravery. It demonstrates the transformative power of storytelling, how sharing one's pain publicly can inspire change and force society to confront uncomfortable truths. This act of defiance against oppression is not just about seeking justice for oneself, but also about giving voice to countless others who remain unseen and unheard. In addition to personal resilience and solidarity, the narrative emphasizes the role of education and empowerment. Imani's passion for technology and her determination to use her skills to combat discrimination showcase how knowledge is a potent tool in the fight for equality. It challenges the stereotype that Black youth are inherently problematic or unworthy, highlighting instead their potential to be innovators and leaders. This message is particularly significant in a world where educational disparities often reflect and reinforce systemic inequalities. Another poignant lesson lies in the way the story addresses redemption and accountability. Officer Matthews, despite being part of the problem, takes responsibility for her actions and apologizes sincerely. This act of contrition, although it does not erase the harm caused, is a step toward healing and growth. It reminds readers that acknowledging mistakes and learning from them is fundamental to breaking cycles of prejudice. Moreover, Karen's public breakdown at the press conference illustrates how prejudice, when confronted with truth and accountability, often crumbles under the weight of its own falsehoods. Her desperation to justify her actions, even in the face of undeniable wrongdoing, reveals the fragility of racist ideologies. It serves as a stark contrast to Imani's quiet, unshakable dignity, proving that true strength comes from integrity, not arrogance. The story's resolution, where Imani is invited to collaborate on legislative reform and present her technological innovations, reinforces the idea that positive change often arises from the most painful experiences. It challenges readers to see beyond their own struggles and consider how their actions can uplift others. Imani's journey from victim to advocate is a powerful testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome adversity and create a legacy of hope. In essence, the story of Imani Jenkins teaches us that racism and prejudice cannot be defeated through silence or compliance. Instead, it requires bravery, resilience, and a commitment to justice. It calls on each of us to be vigilant against our own biases and to actively challenge systems that perpetuate inequality. More importantly, it reminds us that the journey to equity is ongoing, requiring continuous effort, empathy, and innovation. This story ultimately leaves us with a profound truth. The beauty of humanity lies not in the absence of flaws, but in our relentless pursuit to rectify them. Imani's victory is not just personal. It is symbolic of a broader fight against a deeply rooted problem. By standing firm in the face of injustice, refusing to be silenced, and inspiring others to join her cause, Imani becomes a beacon of hope for a more just and inclusive future. Her journey exemplifies the transformative power of courage, compassion, and conviction. It reminds us that change begins with one voice speaking out, one step forward, and one decision to never back down, no matter how daunting the battle may be. Through her story, we are reminded that justice is not merely an ideal, but an active pursuit, shaped by those who dare to stand against the tide of discrimination and fight for a world where everyone is valued for who they truly are.